welcome to the Vital Adjustment Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Austin Boykin, here with Dr. Wesley Disbrow. Our goal is to provide simple health advice to guide our patients and others to a healthier lifestyle. There's a lot of information out there about health and how to improve your health, and a lot of these include very expensive changes to lifestyle and daily habits. 90% of Americans, we believe, don't need to make big changes with expensive things that you hear on all these confusing other platforms. You can make simple changes to make quality life adjustments. Dale, do you want to hit on that?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I see and hear when I'm at practice each day is how confusing the healthcare advice can get for people. They come in and they'll ask, like, what can I do to improve on, let's just say, shoulder pain? And there's a lot you can do, but there's also a lot of confusing information out there. So same thing when it comes to if you have multiple conditions where they just start to stack up. It's like, which one do you start with first? So that's what we're really here to do, is break down what exactly you can do along the way to see the biggest change in your health and how you can break down reversing some of those and changing your lifestyle so you're not reliant on all the drugs, pills, medications. They're there when you need them, but we don't need to be living on them daily.
Exactly. And we're going to keep this kind of conversational to make it easy to listen to, so it's not just like scripted. We'll probably use some anecdotes from our clinics. I'm in Colorado. Dr. Dale is in Michigan, so we get a good variety of people. I get people from small towns. I get people from big towns. It's kind of varied. It's a good variety of the population that we see. We like to just kind of hit on the things that we hear most likely and the advice that we have to give every single day that people just simply don't know or they get confused. Does that sound about right, Dale?
Yeah. So what are some of the big problems you hear each day when people are asking you where to start, what to do?
I mean, obviously we're both chiropractors, so a lot of things has to do with low back pain, neck pain, headaches, that kind of stuff. But the secondary health advice we get asked about a lot seems to come from the confusion they get from either primary care or online resources. A lot of these include things like, how do I lose weight? What are these crazy expensive things I keep hearing about that they say I need to be healthy? How do I eat healthy without making it crazy expensive? How do I improve my sleep? All these are things that I hear every day, and we give advice on how to improve that without any expensive changes, really. Just very minor tweaks to diet and lifestyle. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that gets overlooked today is how important diet is. Yeah, when you have crazy things in your diet, whether it's just living on all the processed foods, eating fast food for lunch, nice quick in and out, these just little things that you don't think about every day start to add up over time, doing it multiple times a week for years and years on end. So if you can slowly reverse that, break it down, you can see huge impacts from not just weight, but also, like we said, lower back pain. Helps cut inflammation down. So there's a lot of little things you can do.
Absolutely, yeah. I think definitely diet is one of the biggest ailments of the American population, at least currently. It's what's quick, what's easy, what tastes good. What has colorful packaging. We know, because we're educated on this, a lot of times we'll just give patients general advice. Shop around the edges of a grocery store, that kind of stuff. Try and buy organic when you can. You don't necessarily have to, but it can help. They do put a lot of pesticides and things on crops, which we now know there's a lot of research on that can kind of irritate you at the very least if you're buying, non-organic. If you want to go a little bit cheaper, that's fine. You're still going to get better than processed food, but just, rinse off your vegetables, rinse off your fruit, that kind of stuff. And just keep it simple, whole ingredients. That kind of stuff for diet is huge. I know another one is like weight and strength training. This has to do with the low back stuff, but a lot of people skip resistance exercise. In my clinic particularly, it's women. I always hear I don't want to get too bulky or too buff. And the reality is you're not going to. You're going to tone up. You're going to feel better. And you're going to be more stable, and you're going to get injured less, especially with taking care of kids. I know, Dale, you've got 2 little ones, or you got one and a half. Keeping up with those kids, especially for women, is something that's hard to do. And a lot of women that I see will end up injuring themselves just trying to take care of their kids. Something, simple twist, catch a kid from falling down or something, and they get injured, and usually it's due to deconditioning. And you're not gonna, end up looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something if you just go lift a few weights to get a little bit of stability. That doesn't happen. That's
So-
on the female side.
You're telling me that I'm not going to go to the gym one time and walk out huge?
Yeah, no, I wish. That's not very common. But that is still, for some reason, something that a lot of women in particular seem to think. I mean, I'm obviously a man talking on this, but that is something that we hear all the time. Is I don't want to get too bulky. On the male side, a lot of times it's lifestyle changes with diet. I have a lot of guys that struggle with diet. My women seem to do a little bit better with it, and I think that's just societal in nature. But my guys are just like, cheeseburgers aren't going to hurt me. And it's like, yeah, they probably wouldn't every once in a while, but if you're doing it every day, and I don't know about you, Dale, but I see a lot of blue-collar workers, some white-collar workers, but my blue-collar guys seem to think that everything that they need to do to be healthy is really expensive. They seem to think that eating healthy is really expensive, to do exercise is going to be really expensive, gym memberships, which really, the reality is you don't need to do. You need to eat healthier, but you can do that fairly cheap.
I would say when it comes to at least how my family eats, I go to Planet Fitness, $10 a month. Yep. We eat whole foods. We try to get if you go into our cupboard, you're not going to find chips or anything in there because we just don't grab it. Now we do take it a little step further. We do a lot of our own baking. We a lot of our own animal raising. So we are lucky enough to be able to have access to that easily. But it's nothing you can't go to the grocery store and just grab a pack of chicken versus let's get the breaded bites in the freezer section.
Yep.
And you can easily just throw some breadcrumbs on there yourself if you want, or just make it regular, and it tastes just as good, if not better. A lot of times I find it tastes better. One of the biggest things that got me starting to look at nutrition was when I noticed, number one, I grew up as a wrestler, so already an unhealthy relationship with food from that. But then as I transitioned from living at home into college, growing up, we raised our own animals, chickens, the whole 9 yards, so hunted. So very rarely did we ever go to the grocery store to get actual meat or food. When we started going to my lunch cafeteria at the school, I got crazy stomach issues all the time. It felt like I was bloated, felt like crap all the time. And then I'd go home, feel great. And it wasn't until I really sat down and looked at what is the difference between what I'm eating and why, that I was feeling like crap all the time. And so then from there, bounced around different diets, tried vegetarian for 6 months to a year, tried paleo, keto, all these fun different things that you hear all the time, and just nothing ever worked until we just really went to the basics and stuck with, we're going to eat whole foods. If we have to, single ingredient things just to prep it all together. And it doesn't have to take a long time either. My wife stays at home, so I'm lucky enough to have dinner whenever we get home from work, but at the same time it doesn't take her ever more than 30 minutes to an hour at the most, which I think that's averagely what most people spend in the kitchen making dinner anyway.
Yeah, it's probably about average. I mean, I know I like to do a little bit of prep work during the week if I can. I might take, after I go grocery shopping, instead of plopping on the couch and watching TV, I might put something on. But a lot of times I'll prep vegetables or things beforehand and just put them in, a glass container or stainless steel. I don't know if you recommend that to your patients. I try and avoid plastic containers, things like that. There's more and more research coming out talking about microplastics. And yeah, some of it might be a little overinflated, but we still don't know. So it's just better to avoid it than to, take the risk, I think. Yeah. And that's a fairly simple and cheap and easy way to kind of...
Another big thing is when you get into some of those little nitty-gritty things like the microplastics or the...
it's not going to make a big difference, but maybe.
What's the other big one recently? Is it the cholesterol... the seed oils.
Yeah, seed oils. Yeah.
So all these little things, you can be very anal about those little things, but that's not what's making a big impact on your health.
No, not for 90% of people.
No. So if it's between I'm using a glass container or a plastic container, would I opt for the glass? Of course, but is it going to make or break everything? No.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not always cost effective to change. If you're using plastic as a food container right now. that's fine. I would just, recommend people, if you're going to ever reheat food, I would try and do that on a standard plate
Yeah.
if you can. Now, if you're at work or something, we get it. It's not, again, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about little changes that can help 90% of people.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And
just
and
don't
obviously
get
this
caught
won't
up.
all. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to talk over you there. This won't all be about diet, but we just think that's something that we see a lot of, and we get asked a lot of questions about that. Obviously, this is called the Vital Adjustment podcast, and we have a page, vitaladjustment.com. We'll be doing blog posts to help you guys stay updated. And we call it the Vital Adjustment for two reasons. One, we're chiropractors, so it's kind of funny to say adjustment for us, because that's what we do. Manual manipulation, whatever you want to call it. But the other part is we want to make a vital adjustment to your health. We want you guys to make the small changes that make the big impacts.
And by any means necessary. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to overhaul your entire life in one day. Little baby steps along the way can really get the ball rolling, and as you start to get moving, it's going to become a lot easier to stack these habits on top of each other to really see the progress and the change.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the small steps, it's the what do I do every day for 10 minutes a day or less that can really impact your health. You don't have to go, get a 8 sleep pod that's $4,000 to help you sleep. You don't have to get any of these crazy things. You can just, turn your phone off 30 minutes before bed, or, avoid, some blue light. Try not to do caffeine after noon. It's all really little things.
Start your day out stretching.
Yeah.
Get warmed up, especially in these winter months. That's a big, easy way to prevent injuries. Is just not jumping out of bed, running straight to the car, and getting into work. You find a lot of strains, sprains, slips, and falls that way. So little things that are going to have big impact on your life go a long ways, without having to require a whole ton of personal effort, because motivation's not what you want to be relying on to make these changes. Motivation's going to come and go. You want to have sustainable change.
Yeah, and that's something that we obviously have to preach every day in our practices, is just sustainable small steps that everybody can do. I think a lot of people try and take these big leaps, especially this time of year. I mean, we're kind of into March now, so we're kind of past the fail date in mid-January, early February, but a lot of people try and make these big changes at the beginning of the year, fad diets, things like that. What we see is most people make it about, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. They start feeling a little bit better, and then, they get busy, or, tax season, or, something like that. And then they fall off. They end up either gaining more weight or feeling worse than they did before. And then they say, that didn't work for me. And, we hear the same thing, obviously, about our profession, specifically chiropractic. We hear that a lot. We get people that might start, or, they hear something kooky online about chiropractors. The reality of the situation is we don't do chakras, crystals, or anything like that. If you see somebody that's doing that in our profession, go to somebody else. Talk to somebody more professional. We went through, 8 years of school to do this, 6 years, depending, on the state, and what you decided to do before grad school. But we are really health experts. I mean, we get the nutrition education, we get the exercise education, we get basically the whole health education that we feel is kind of missing today. Your medical doctors, they're awesome. We refer to them, we use them. Orthopedic surgeons, neurologists, these are all wonderful people. PTs, excellent. I refer to all these people. I send people that absolutely needed to go to those places. But we're trying to fill that void, and we are the people to fill the void in the healthcare system, because we are educated on nutrition, we're educated on exercise, we're educated on spinal movement. Most disabilities in the United States, or at least a good portion of them, have to do with low back injuries or back injuries in general. It's pretty much one of the one things that has the highest failure rate for surgery. So that's kind of where we fall in. Dale, do you want to talk about just like chiropractic in general? Because I feel like a lot of people, there's a gray area there, and they get kind of confused about who we are. Or they see kooky things online, and it gets a little wild.
When it comes to chiropractic, really, yes, we do adjustments. Yes, sometimes in some offices they can look different than others. There's a lot of variety in them. But at the end of the day, what people are coming to us isn't necessarily just for the adjustment. It's for the advice that we have to offer, because we're kind of, like you said, we're that intermediary between the drastic procedures and we're a lot of times people's last stop, which is sad, but it's also great, because we get the chance to really point them in the right path and prevent some surgeries, which is great. Not everyone needs the surgeries. Not everyone needs to live on the medications. But to chiropractic, what it is to me is really just all about living a healthier lifestyle. It's not just the getting my back cracked and feeling great.
Yeah.
It does feel great, and I love getting adjusted all the time. But it's more than just bones popping in and out. It's more than just getting in and out of pain. It's getting your brain and your whole body connected and functioning at the highest level together. Because in your spine, what a lot of people don't realize is that's where your nervous system is. That's where it all stems from, and that's your main source of communication from your brain to the rest of your body. So if you have things misaligned, if you have inflammation in areas in the neck or the lower back, that can cause more dysregulation between how your body's even just functioning on the inside, and a lot of times you don't feel that until it's years and years down the road.
Yeah, it's kind of like the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? You know, you go through years of life, you know, a lot of times young people, they kind of bounce back, you know, they have a fall, my back's a little sore today. They wake up the next day and go lifting at 6 a.m. You know, like, you don't notice it. But when you hit your late, 30s, 40s, all of a sudden these things start taking a little longer to get a little better, and, it starts to kind of degrade a little bit. And, that's when we usually see early signs of degenerative changes in the spine in general. You start losing a little disc space, a little bit of mobility, and we like to get on top of that. Obviously, like Dale said, the spinal cord goes through the spinal canal, which is in your vertebrae, and if you don't keep good spinal mobility, which you can do through some exercise, but sometimes you do need that movement. And even PTs will admit that there is a time and a place for manipulation. And obviously we believe that if things are moving better, you're going to feel better. And they're starting to try and basically do what we do sometimes. And, if they're realizing that sometimes you need functional movement that requires a little bit of physical help, that's great. But,
and that's another key part in our education through school is knowing not only how to adjust, but when not to.
Yeah, when and when not to. That's a big thing.
That is probably more important than almost more than knowing how to, is knowing when not to, because you can, if we see something on an x-ray, if we see something that's out of the normal, they're not seeing that at the primary care. We find it, so then we can help get them to the right person, save lives, prevent big issues, cascades down the road. Yep.
Yeah, we catch things. Obviously, I x-ray in my practice. I see things all the time that sometimes either gets missed, ignored, or I will get a radiology report from another practitioner, medical doctor, sometimes an orthopedic surgeon, and sometimes these changes are written off as normal. Especially osteoarthritis, degenerative changes. It might be just written, generalized degeneration in the cervical, lumbar, or thoracic spine, which just means the different parts of the back. Sometimes that'll get written off as a normal change, but those bony anomalies can cause big issues. Tingling in the fingers, hands, feet, burning down the arm, things like this. And a lot of times they're not surgical. Discs can be surgical. Bone spurs typically are not. It was a big thing. Kind of in the 80s, they used to do these surgical resections of those spurs. They'd go right back. And so the biggest thing is like mobility, keeping those joints moving. Chiropractic's obviously a big part of that. And, staying active, eating a low inflammatory diet, that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I have on the chiropractic side. I mean, we'll talk about it more as we go through.
Yes.
I think we'll kind of hit on it a little bit every day, because that's what we do every day. That's what we see every day.
Yep. So we'll probably, for schedule-wise, try to keep this at least maybe once a week to every other week as we get started and get rolling.
Yep.
And then as we get more comfortable with doing this side of the podcast, we'll be able to hopefully bring more and more episodes to you. And then if you guys have any other questions, thoughts while listening to this, feel free to let us know. And if you something you want to hear or learn more about, let us know, and we'll be happy to, if we don't know much about it, do more research and figure it out. We're always interested in learning and trying to help as many people the best way that we can.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So it's been a pleasure talking to everybody here. And don't forget to check out VitalAdjustment.com. And if you want more information too, we also have a newsletter you can find there called Vital Wellness Weekly. It's something that I release each week, talking more about the science and behind what we're doing, what we're talking about. So if you want more research and the nerd side of things, just subscribe to that.
Yep.
All right. See you, Austin.
We'll talk to you guys probably next week.
Adios.
Good See you, Dale.